If he's not a great 3-down player, then it probably wasn't worth all what they did. Because the guy was a really good player at Georgia for how they used him. They're a build a wall front, and he's going to have to keep his weight in check. He has athletic traits that would indicate he can push the pocket and rush a little bit better from the interior than he was asked to do in college. If he can do that, it's going to turn out to be he's going to be a really good player. Is it going to be worth all the surrenders? Well, again, you're surrendering guys that you don't know who you would have gotten, but there's a lot of players that potentially people are going to cherry pick and say, we could have had this guy and that guy.
Appreciate you streaming on in here on Birds 365. You got the Mac and Mac guys. We're going to have a fun final half hour with our next guest. He's been on with us before, and whenever he comes on, he brings tremendous amounts of knowledge. He's been busy since the draft because National Football League teams are still picking his brain. We get a chance to do just that here for a couple of minutes on Birds 365. Former NFL scout and coach Chris Landry, he of LandryFootball.com, joins us here on Birds 365. You get to take a breath after the draft, Mr. Landry?
No, it just kind of refocuses a little bit. Once the draft is over, the final day of the draft, it's the busiest because you really are working on a lot of free agent stuff, a lot of undrafted free agents. And then, I think that's it. Then it really shifts for me in the work that I do still working in the league as a consultant and all the college work, it shifts. So maybe some of the NFL stuff dies down, but then I've got, the college football, transfer portal, and, a lot of the stuff that goes on this time of year. It's not much of a downtime. And right now I'm looking at, man, it's going to be the end of June this week, really? And I mean, it's July 4th, and usually July 4th is when you say, hey, training camps are a couple of weeks away, and we're all at it again.
Yeah, it creeps up on you quickly, Chris. It's interesting because personnel in the NFL is so interesting to me from the dichotomy of sort of building teams. And you've been there, you still consult with teams. I love asking people like you, how easy is it for organizations to be realistic about where they are in the process? In other words, there are certain teams that know they're contenders. They know the window is open. They know they got to go for it. They got to try to win. And there's other teams, and I would look at the New York Giants, maybe in Seattle being the most obvious right now, kind of know that, all right, it's time to rebuild a little bit. The Giants made the shift and at GM, and the Seahawks moved on from Russell Wilson. In your experience, how easy is it for teams to admit we're not ready, basically?
Well, I can't speak for everybody because, quite frankly, some people, it's a little bit harder. I think what's changed from the time that I started in the league a long time ago to now, the biggest thing that's changed is the public perception, and the public scrutiny is greater.
Yeah.
And it gets to the owner and what I would call the non-football people part of it that just placate to the media. I mean, the best organizations, to be honest with you, is the one that has the owner and says, I don't give a darn about what the fans say, what the media says. We're going to do what's best for the organization and not placate, well, let's get rid of this guy, let's get rid of that guy. And, we did what you wanted, fresh start. You sell a fresh start, and you're just selling, fool's gold because you're just hoping that the next move works. When in reality, if you take a long-range approach, you'd be surprised. If you take the long-range approach of trying to build a team, you might end up getting there quicker than even you anticipated. What I mean by that is the biggest problem you have, and the organizations that switch over all the time, they're never the chances of being successful are so minimal, and the reason is they never commit to anything. It's like building a house. You got the foundation, you put the studs, and then you decide halfway, you got the wife that says, I want the bathroom over there. You start over and you never move in. I mean, the Detroit Lions, I mean, God bless them. They never stay. We're going to do it completely different. Well, then everything you did for 3 years, that some of what could have worked is just, it's gutted and you start over from scratch again. Sometimes being patient and working through the tough times and staying the course is going to end up in the better rate. So to the answer your question is, a lot of organizations now just succumb to we got to, the fans are the season tickets and the suite holders and well, then, they're going to be complaining in 3-4 years when your next move doesn't work. And then you look like the idiot because you've hired, 5 guys. I mean, I just think the stability of an organization from an ownership standpoint, upper management standpoint, is critically important because as a football guy, you can try to explain to them, but if you don't have their commitment, then what do you do? And now, so it filters down. If you are going to make a decision and you're running a team and you're coaching a team and you know that you got to win now, you're going to make decisions that are not for the best of your organization. It's for the best of your job security short term. And you should not put people in a situation where they're choosing. It should be all in. No, we're all in. We're going to win. We're going to give you time. We're going to do it. There's a point in time where you got to cut bait when it's not getting done. But it's got to be more than just the wins and losses. It has to be the understanding of, are you following the plan that you set forth? Or you're, what we call plan du jour, where you try this and you try something else. Well, then you say, look, this guy is just grasping at straws. We got to move on. But if you have a solid foundation that you believe in, it's going to work. I mean, I think the team that's probably done that the best has been the Steelers. Well, they haven't won, long time since they've won multiple Super Bowls, but they're always competitive. And now they're, so I just think that if you're in a position to do that, you can be somewhat competitive. And, that you don't want to take as long as, say, the Cincinnati Bengals and then get into Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and then, and they've got a number of other pieces. Sometimes that takes too long. But I think that's the difficulty of today is, you used to have a little bit more time because the media scrutiny wasn't as much as it is today. And I think it is. And I think it's to the detriment of successful run organizations.
All right, Chris, you were good enough to come on with us a couple times before the draft, leading up to the draft, and right before the draft. Haven't had you on since. The Eagles, a month out from the draft, had 10 draft picks going into the NFL draft. They end up making 5 picks because they use those picks to move up, to acquire a big-time player like A.J. Brown. So we judge the Eagle draft a couple of different ways. I want you to just judge it on 5 picks, whether it was plus, whether it was minus, whether they should have added more picks or they should have done less picks. Just give me your evaluation on the 5 players, where they took them, and how much they're going to be able to step in and contribute year 1, year 2, year 3, whatever. Give me your evaluation of the 5 guys that the Eagles took in its past draft as far as value goes.
Well, first of all, before I do that, I'm a big believer in this. This is a boring take, I know, but this is reality in the football world. You don't know how drafts pan out to 3 years down the road. So
Understood.
grading draft now is just it's fine. I mean, they're drafts that I was, shaking my head. I wish I could have got that guy, and it turned out, better than if I had got it the way I wanted, and I've had the others. So you don't really know. And there's so many things you can't really separate shopping for the groceries and cooking the meal, drafting the players, acquiring players, and then utilizing them in developing. So let's just take Jordan Davis, for example. Let's just cut to the chase, just go to the players and do that. Could they have done something else? Yeah, there's a lot of things, but some of that we don't know how doable it was. Jordan Davis is an intriguing player. He was a big powerful, underrated athletic guy. The key here is he going to be a great 3-down player or a great 2-down player? If he's not a great 3-down player, then it probably wasn't worth all what they did. Because the guy was a really good player at Georgia for how they used him. They're a build a wall front, and he's going to have to keep his weight in check. He has athletic traits that would indicate he can push the pocket and rush a little bit better from the interior than he was asked to do in college. If he can do that, it's going to turn out to be he's going to be a really good player. Is it going to be worth all the surrenders? Well, again, you're surrendering guys that you don't know who you would have gotten, but there's a lot of players that potentially people are going to cherry pick and say, we could have had this guy and that guy. So I look at Jordan Davis as a guy that's going to be potentially a really, really good player or a great one. But to me, if he's a 2-down guy that you got that can't be effective on 3rd down, then you've given up, too much for him because he's not going to have the type of impact relative to what they gave up for him. Cam Jurgens is an intriguing guy as well. He's on a smaller side, but he's got the speed, the quickness that is really good to get out on the second level. I think he plays with good leverage, and I think it can be bull rushed. You're going to have to protect them a little bit there. I thought, it was a nice pick. I probably would have done something different there. But again, it's a good player that I think is going to make it. Like Nakobe Dean a lot. He really was an instinctive player. He is an athletic guy. He steps over trash. He's got great speed to close. He doesn't have great size, but boy, he can really, really run. He drops well into coverage. I think it's probably what he does as good as any. So he's got great value there. I'm trying to think who else. Kyron Johnson.
And Grant Calcaterra.
Johnson, did a really good job for Kansas this past year. He's a really instinctive ball hawk guy. He really reads and reacts very well. He's a depth guy for them. Calcaterra from SMU. He's a guy. He retired after some injuries at Oklahoma and then decided to come back. The biggest thing with him is health. I think he would have gone higher. So you're dealing with a guy that you don't know about longevity here, but he has size, speed, and he's a really good receiver. He can be a guy that can be that type of guy. That can be a real impact player in the passing game behind Goddard. Just the health is going to be the key. So, I miss anybody? I'm trying to think.
No, that's it.
No, you got them all.
Those are the guys. Yeah. Want to dive a little deeper, Chris, with Davis for this reason, with Jordan Davis, because the Eagles kind of behind the scenes have told me that, all right, if I think everybody wants him to turn into a 3-down player, and certainly that's what you're always ascribing to. But if he turns out to be the Vita type run stuffer, and all of a sudden, 3rd and 2 turns into 3rd and 8 because you got that big body in the middle, he's still having an impact on the game on 3rd downs. That's kind of how the Eagles have framed it. Is that, you mentioned public perception, is that a little too esoteric for people? Like they're not going to realize the impact that player has on the game, maybe, if he's not on the field, if he's not making the play? Is that kind of stuff too outside the box and is just not, I guess, pie in the sky?
I got you. Well, here's the thing, guys. If he's a really good 2-down player, and you could have got that type of guy in the 4th round, not Jordan Davis, but you can get run stuffers that are that big that can play the run. he's going to have to be a really good player on third down, or relative to where they took him and what they gave up to get him. Then to me, and I think he will be. Okay, so I'm all for it. But
Yeah.
if he doesn't, no, you don't say, well, I mean, because you play well and you force third and eights, but you win in third downs in this league. And first downs and second downs, stopping the run is really important. So if he's great at doing that, absolutely. But what you've done is you're taking a guy that it's kind of like, let's say they were free agents. Are you going to pay, in terms of draft capital, are you going to pay Aaron Donald type of draft capital
Yeah.
for a guy? No, he's not Aaron Donald. If he is, wow. So now, in terms of who you could have had, maybe getting a guy that was just a run plugger versus, somebody later and somebody else without having to trade up. If he doesn't turn out to be really good on third down, in my opinion, it's not worth what they did. I think he will, because he's not Aaron Donald. Okay, he's not, but he's a guy that to me can be really good. Look, if he can do the Fletcher Cox type things and do all that, he's going to be worth it in my mind, because I think he's going to be that, because I think he has the athletic ability to do it, and I know what they asked him to do at Georgia and how they asked him to do it. But I think what you're getting there is you're getting they're doing the sell job of,
Yeah.
if it does, or well, we still were right. No, you don't make that move unless you can get that. It's just like, it's like me saying, when we tried to move up to draft Javon Curse, and we couldn't. We ended up taking him, and we took him high at 16. I said, well, if he's not a great pass rusher, but he can be a stand-up linebacker like at Florida, still worth it. No. It went, no. He was as good and he played linebacker at Florida. And, he was a great pass rusher. And while we went to the Super Bowl, quite frankly, he was the difference on our team. So, no, I don't think you can hide from that. He needs to be really good on third down. I think he will. I hope he's great. He demands double teams, so he's going to make other people around him better on third down. But it's not, and again, it's not about, folks, it's not about how many sacks. It's about how many pressures and how many double teams does he take up on third downs. So, if he gets 2 sacks all year, and you got other guys, because he's occupying guys, or other guys getting free, and everybody else is a better pass rusher, you're getting the impact on third down. If he's off the field on third down, you're not getting the complete value out of trading up that high, and giving up as much to get him. That's my view anyway. But again, I think he will be that.
Chris Landry here with us on Birds 365. All right, Chris. Been reading some stuff on your website about making that transition for the college season. Now you're into July and the transfer portal. It has become a huge aspect of college football. It's got its pluses, certainly for the players. If they're in a bad situation, they can't break through in the lineup, someone else is interested, guaranteeing them play time, they just up and go. It's that much harder for coaches because guys are just leaving programs. But then again, you can fill in some blanks by taking someone in the transfer portal. So it's got its pluses and minuses for the coaches, all pluses for the players. What about a guy like yourself, a scout? How does it affect your life watching a player play at one university, then he's going to another university, he's playing in a different type system for a different type coach? How much more difficult, or maybe easy, maybe I've got a bad read on it, a guy like yourself who has to try and evaluate college talent, what kind of an effect does the transfer portal have on a guy like you?
Well, just from a purely evaluation standpoint, it's good because you can see a guy maybe go into a different system. Although a lot of times when you bring a guy in as a transfer, you're going to bring a guy in that fits your system. So you're going to be running a similar system. But let's say you bring in a linebacker that plays Willbacker somewhere, and he plays more on the strong side, or plays some Mike, or he's blitzes a little bit more. He does things differently than what they asked him in the first place. You get to see him a little more. Maybe it's a guy on a team that's just loaded with talent, and he just doesn't get enough playing time, and all of a sudden gets that time. But I got to tell you guys, it is a disaster from a coaching standpoint. It's disorganized. Most of your fans, I'm sure a lot of your listeners to the NFL. Imagine this: we got an NFL system. Any player can pick up and leave anytime they want. Yeah, just I mean, you might make for a great show. You wake up tomorrow morning, what?
How many guys walked out the door on the Eagles?
Yes, exactly. It's look, the whole one thing about we're not perfect, but there's a lot of organization and structure in the NFL. College has no organization and structure. I think the idea of having the right to transfer is a good one, but there's unintended consequences. You have to have a certain period in which you can transfer, and not just willy-nilly anytime. I mean, we got guys leaving in the middle of the season last year. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it's disorganized. I detest disorganization. It's the thing I can't survive. I just can't. So it is a real problematic. So it's just kind of like NIL. Well, people think it's good, it's bad. Well, it's here to stay. But we need to have some doggone rules that we need to follow, and we have to have guardrails so that people don't run it off the darn road. It's more and more like the NFL, but without, we get NFL free agency. The league year starts, free agency begins. We know when things are in college. It's just we're trying to figure it out, and it's on the heels of when I was a recruiting coordinator in college, guys. Signing day was in February, which that's when the second signing day is now, and you didn't offer kids until they were a senior in high school because you got to know them better, more time, and they got to know you better. Now you have signing day in December. Now you're recruiting 3 years at a time. They're recruiting classes of 2024 now in addition to 2023. Well, you don't know whether those kids are going to develop. So a commitment that you offer to a kid and a kid that makes a commitment to you means nothing. The other schools still recruit him because, he may not, somebody may be better will offer them. I think it teaches the wrong message. No commitment, no organization. So I think the whole thing and the whole system is disorganized and problematic. And I just think college football is so great in terms of excitement, in terms of, a lot of the positive things, but we just don't have any college football organization. It's run by the member institutions. People say the NCAA has nothing to do with it. They have no control. They have no say so. It's run by the commissioners of the conference, and everybody's their own thing. Imagine that. Imagine if the NFC East says, well, we're going to do this. We're going to make our own TV schedule. We're going to do all this. I mean, and I know that sounds stupid.
Yeah.
That's what college football is.
Yeah.
Everybody, and it's right now what we're getting is the SEC and the Big Ten. This Big Ten contract that's getting ready to get done is going to blow. The SEC and the Big Ten are separating away from the Pac-12, the Big 12, and the ACC from a contractual standpoint. It is entering NFL level. I mean, they're getting, because now you got these streaming services like Amazon, Peacock, and so they're just throwing competition. I just don't know, without organization to say, all right, this is what we need to do at college football. I just think it's a mess. And I know it's NIL when they said, well, it's not going to be used for recruiting. And I'm like, you keep everything is used in recruiting.
Yeah.
Your facilities, your coach's age, your style of, every darn thing is. It's just, and the NCAA has no enforcement capability. They don't have subpoena power, and their enforcement staff is already lean. They just laid off 30, three members of their enforcement staff over the past month and a half.
Wow.
You know, people, guys that just say, just cheat. No, it doesn't matter. Nobody
Yeah.
can catch you unless somebody's got it on tape and just brings it there on the silver platter. And then it really is a mess, and I don't know how because it is. Look, we know this. A lot of owners in the NFL, if they were around, I mean, if we didn't back in the old days when the New York and the Chicago ownership said, you know what, as a business partner, we're not going to survive unless Green Bay and everybody. We got to have opponents.
Yeah.
If today. I mean, you know who the owners are. Some of them would like to say, I want to do my own TV deal. You know who they are, but it wouldn't be good for the league. But that's college football. It's just your own individual thing. And in this day and age where the world is, let's just call it, guys, selfish.
Sure.
I mean, the genie's out of the bottle. I mean, how are you going to coordinate it? It's going to take a lot of reform to get it back. Maybe not in the bottle, but I mean, it's the most I can tell you right now, they're the three teams out of the four that are going to be in the playoffs, and it's only because there are three of them that are good enough, and there's maybe four of them that are good enough to be the fourth team in the playoffs and get the rear end kicked in the semifinals. That's how. Predictable college football is, and I hate
and it's no fun and you're right, that landscape, but you're only as strong as your weakest link as a league. So you're right about that, Chris, and I think people in college football have forgotten about that. But the transfer portal, I want to talk about it from a coach's perspective because Jody brought it up. We were talking about Jordan Davis, even Trayvon Walker, the number 1 overall pick. Some of the knocks on them coming into the draft was they didn't play that much because Georgia had so much stinking talent up front, and either they played them or they were going to leave. And they already felt that with Jermaine Johnson, who's now a New York Jet for Jody Mack's club. They lost him, and they got a kid who's going to be a top 5 pick next year. And on. They have so much talent. And if you don't play them, they're going to leave and they're going to go play somewhere else. So how much has it changed sort of a coach's strategy that I have to get these people on the field, and maybe that didn't affect Trayvon Walker that much, but it affects the evaluation process of how good can this kid be, because he's not on the field that much as what a normal number 1 overall pick would be.
Well, it affects it a lot. It affects starting from how you coach. You're going to play your best players, but there's no but. Period. You also need to look at your depth, your future, and you need to. Here's how it's affected it. College coaches are recruiting their own players every day. So I mean, you're recruiting them once you're in there. Hey, stick in there. Your time's coming. You're going to be the next first round pick. You're recruiting your players. Here's the other thing that's happening. And this is really, seedy. You're recruiting other schools' players. That is happening all the time. What I'm hearing all the time with coaches, every college coach, I got more college coaches. You may know I do a lot of coaching search work. More college coaches this year want to get out of college and go to the NFL than ever before in the past 20 years. They're burnt out because they're telling me, Chris, I'm having to recruit my players in my position room every day.
Right.
Because I'm not playing enough. I'm not getting enough snaps. I could go there and get this. Hey, coach, so-and-so at Georgia Tech just called. They can offer me this NIL deal worth this. Now you got to go and, this is what world of college athletics is all about. And, oh, by the way, you recruit Mr. Johnny 5-star that comes in that ain't all that. He's not that good of a player. And Mr. Law Firm that put an NIL deal together and say, hey, where's Jody? I pay all that money for Jody Mack, and and you're getting all that crap you're having to deal with. And it's like, well, Jody's not working hard. Yeah, I'm just, you know what I'm saying?
No,
It's
we
like
got you.
that's what you're dealing with all of that. That's real time. Look, it's what we deal with a little bit in the NFL, in that guys are professionals. Some guys play a little differently, in contract years and whatever. But in college, they're constantly looking out for me. And I'm not against guys getting paid money and what have you. But this is the problem again. When the NCAA, this was coming down the track a long time ago. And if they would have taken steps to put together a better organized situation where they say, look, you players get scholarships and room and board and all that, but we're going to give you more, and here's what we're going to do. Instead of doing that, they allowed the courts to rule in favor of some of these guys. Now, if you go to those players with that same deal, they say, bleep that, I can get $100,000. I can get $500,000. Quarterback at Alabama could get $800,000 a year just because he's that. And, what's to say that guy goes out and wins the Heisman Trophy somewhere, and he's got another year left in college. He says, "You know what? I like it at Alabama, and I'm making $800,000. Let an agent help him find $1.5 million. I'm gonna transfer to Penn State or whatever." I mean, that certain guys may do that. That's kind of where we are, with no rhyme or reason of what we're doing, how we're doing it. So it is chaotic, and it is the worst for the college coaches, because they're having to deal with that with their own roster. And then, they're having to prepare. If they lose a guy, they have to go purge somebody else. That's where we are.
Guys, if you, like me, learned something over the last half hour, which we do every single time we bring Chris Landry on, you got to check out his website, LandryFootball.com, his podcast, Landry Football as well. Follow him on Twitter at Landry Football. Chris, you're one of the most insightful and best storytellers we get on here on Birds 365. We appreciate you coming on today. We'll get you on before the season starts, big guy.
Hey, thanks for being patient. Get me on. It's time flew by. Thanks a bunch. Keep up the great work, and be safe out there. Have a great summer.
Thanks, Chris.